Hi, I'm Pat O'Keefe. Welcome to Essential Kickboxing Volume 2. In this DVD, we'll be showing you defensive techniques. In Volume 1, we showed offensive techniques of punching and kicking. What we'll be doing now is showing you the other side, how you defend against those very punches and kicks. First, we'll show you the techniques themselves, then we'll show you how to link them together, and finally, we'll introduce structured sparring. Using the structured sparring, we'll be able to introduce you to timing and mobility. It's one step away from sparring freely in the ring. But before we get to there, we've got to show you the basics. I hope you enjoy the DVD. Okay, in this volume we're going to be dealing with defensive skills. If your opponent can't hit you, you can continue to win the fight. 50% of all kickboxing is not being hit. You have to learn to appreciate that if your opponent isn't hitting you, his confidence, his ability will diminish. He'll start fighting himself mentally. Therefore, the game is not only to make him miss, but make him miss regularly. What we're going to be doing here is showing the individual skills, how they're linked, and finally the drills that make them a living part. We'll also show you how you flow out of defensive skills into offensive skills easily, slickly. We're going to start by beginning to show you basic body movement to avoid techniques. And for that, I'm going to use my assistant, Sam. Sam. The first technique that we're going to show you here is slip. Slip can be used against a number of techniques. So to begin with, I'm going to show you it against the jab as a simple way of learning the skill, and then show you applications against other techniques. With a slip, you basically take a step forward with your left leg and let his punch sail over your shoulder by inclining your head. Once that punch has gone past your head, you are in a position to launch a counter. Let's go through the motions and see what you can see. Sam will throw a slow jab at me. As he throws it, I take a slight movement with my front foot, I incline my shoulder, and his punch passes past my head. And back. Again. Again. It's very important that you do not anticipate the shot, but rather react to it. Because if you anticipate and beat your opponent to the punch, he can then think of launching another attack, so that in fact, when I'm trying to slip, he can fly into something else because I've shown him too early what I'm going to do. Let's just watch that. Before Sam moves, I already start slipping because I'm second guessing him, and now he'll switch and he'll hook me because I've left myself open to the technique. So the trick then is to react to the technique, not anticipate it, at least not at this stage. Let's see it again. As he jabs, I move my foot to the outside. Just a jab, please, Sam. Move my foot to the outside and let the punch sail over. This is slipping to the outside of the technique. This is very important. Of both slipping motions, left and right, this is the safest because I'm on the outside of his body. Here. I can slip to the right, here. And again, it makes the punch miss. The problem is that his positive hand here, which is back, is able to hit me. So I mustn't loiter if I slip to the right. Watch again. Left is safe. You can go to the right, but you better come out again quickly. Watch. Slip, slip. Again. Slip, slip. Now we said that you can use a slip against more than one technique. So we're now going to show you slipping outside for the left hand, and when he throws the right cross as a combination, I'll slip outside his right hand. Watch again. Slip, slip. Again. Slip, slip. Again. Slip, slip. This is very economical in terms of energy. There is no extravagant movement. We said in the first volume that tension is the enemy of all movement. And this has to be really re-emphasized when it comes to defensive skills. Your shoulders, your hips, your knees, your ankles should be relaxed. And most importantly, you should be mentally relaxed. If you're tense, if you're over-anticipating, you're going to soon get caught out. So the thing is, talk yourself down inside your head. Talk the tension out of your shoulders, out of your hips, out of your knees. Keep the body soft and roll with the punch. Let's watch that slipping against the jab and the right cross again. Okay, thank you, Sam. I'm now going to bring in Frank, my other assistant, to show you slipping against one or two other skills. Now with slips, what must be obvious is it works against straight techniques. So in actual fact, if my opponent throws any straight technique, be it a hand or a leg, the principle still works. In this case, Frank is going to throw a lead leg front kick to my head. And a back leg front kick to my head. Thank you, Frank. So now we can see that the slip works, not against an individual technique, but against the direction of attack. And this is a theme we'll be coming back to again and again. You must remember the targets and protecting them. And you must remember the techniques that your opponent has to offer. You should be aiming to work against direction of attack rather than the technique itself. Let's call Sam back into the ring and show you now the layback. The layback is a technique that people frequently get wrong. Very simply, you lean away from the technique. But it is very, very important that you do not put all your weight on your back leg, because if you do, you've got nowhere to go if he follows up. Rather than leaning your body away, and I'll emphasize that now without a punch, rather than lean right back here, no, without a punch, here, okay, what you're doing is you've pinned your weight on your back leg, you've got nowhere to go. Rather, it is better that you bend this rear leg here. So that in effect, you're moving away from the punch, but you've now got that leg tensed and ready to straighten and relaunch you into movement. Very slowly, we'll show you the layback. Sam, can you put your jab on the end of my nose? Sam is now at full extension and he's hit the target. To defeat this jab, I'm bending my rear leg and letting the movement take me away from the punch. Watch that again, it's quite subtle. Pick up on this rear leg action. As I bend the knee, it takes me away from the punch. Now it takes quite a fine judgment to do this, because if he comes in with a lot of penetration, i.e. comes in, covers maybe a foot 18 inches, and you lean back 12, you're going to get hit. So you've got to judge his technique finely. This will come with training and practice. What we're doing here is showing the principle, bending the rear leg and moving away. The beauty of this technique is that it leaves stored energy in your back leg and you're able to come back into the attack quite quickly. Let's see the basic layback again, and then I'll show you some application. As Sam throws the punch, I bend the rear leg and it takes me out of range. Thank you, Sam. Frank. Okay. Now, I've just mentioned there about the back leg being bent and stored energy. Now, there's a very, very simple counter to a jab thrown at you after you've used the layback. And the counter is a jab. So that the attack is a jab, you defend by leaning back. And now, because the stored energy is there, as his arm returns, he's on for a jab for me. Watch that again. Lay back, straight into the attack. Again. Lay back, straight into the attack. Again, you should think about that rear leg. As I've leant away, the energy is stored, and this is the perfect spring by which I now launch my counter. There. Thank you, Frank. So we have slipping, left and right, and we have layback. We're going to move on now and show you another skill. This is the duck. Sam. With the duck, basically you're bending both legs and letting the technique sail over the top of your head. What is good about these skills, the slip, the layback, the duck, is that it leaves both hands and both feet free to counterattack. Later on, we're going to show you parries and blocks, And they obviously involve the tying up of one or more limbs in the defensive actions. These techniques, if you can bring them off, the slip, the lay back, the duck, are very aggressive because it leads you, or should leave you, primed perfectly to counter your opponent. Let's just see the duck now. Again, we're going to use a jab, but it can be used against any straight technique. As Sam throws the punch here, I duck down here, bending both my knees so that the punch sails over. It is very important with these movement defences that you don't overcompensate, that you neither duck too low, nor slip left or right, or lay back too far. You should make the punch miss by millimetres. The more extravagant your movement, the better chance he has of following on. So if I go down too far, by the time I'm back into the action, he's already thinking about his next shot. So I want his punch to just barely sail over the target, here. Again. Again. Thank you, Sam. Frank. In all of these techniques, you can see why it's important to be relaxed in the shoulders and the knees. It's the knees that's going to be bending. It's the shoulders that's going to be turning. Talk yourself down whenever you practice these, and particularly when you run them as drills or in sparring. Okay. We've just shown you the duck. It works against a right cross as well. Frank, here. Again, here. Here. So, what we're going to do now is to link some of these techniques together in an obvious pattern. In each case, Frank is going to throw a left-right. He'll throw a left-right followed by another left-right. We'll do this slowly so you can appreciate what's happening. Slip outside, lay back, duck, again. Thank you, Frank. In the next section, we'll show you how some of these link together, and in particular with the defensive action known as bob and weave. Okay, now we're going to show you bob and weave, which is another upper body defensive movement skill. This is quite a sophisticated motion, and when linked together with slipping outside and inside, laying back and ducking down, together these 5 techniques will show you 95% of all upper body evasion. In itself, the bob and weave is more sophisticated than slipping, laying back or ducking, and it requires you to stay completely relaxed. So we're going to re-emphasise this point. Stay relaxed in the shoulders, relaxed in the hips, relaxed in the knees, and relaxed in the ankles. Sam. When we go through this motion, I want you to try and appreciate that these techniques will be performed under pressure when you have to do them, whether it's in sparring or in the ring. If that relaxation isn't there, if you're not totally mentally and physically at one, you're going to tense up, and when you do, you're going to be open for techniques. So the mental state here is alert but relaxed, and the body state is loose. Sam is going to show a very slow jab to my head, and the movement starts with a slip to the outside, here. From there, I'm now going to go into a duck and weave my way round to the inside. Should he throw the rear hand at my head, I will now perform the action in the opposite direction, in that I duck down and I slip here. This bobbing down and weaving motion, okay, when performed slowly, doesn't look a lot. But we're going to show you now a few occasions how this is used, and then we're going to combine both punches. So we're going to do this off 3 times, jab only, Sam, yeah. Now we're going to show the action against a jab followed by a cross. So that as I slip and duck down to the inside, Sam primes his rear hand and throws it, and I escape by going back the same way with a bob and weave action. Okay. Bob and weave is very, very important, extremely important. There are 3 reasons for throwing these techniques. What we're doing now is showing you just one, the evading of individual techniques or simple groupings of techniques, simple combinations. Later on, you'll learn that these movements, these very powerful movements when linked together, perform 2 other completely different functions which are part of your defence. We're going to bring in Frank now and show you some of these techniques linked together. Sam. Just a quick recap. We learned to slip outside and inside. We learned to lay back, we learned to duck, and we learned to bob and weave. Now we're going to show you slowly how those techniques link together. Slip, slip, lay back, duck, bob and weave, bob and weave. Again, slip, slip, lay back, duck, bob and weave, bob and weave. Okay, faster. Slip, slip, lay back, duck, bob and weave, bob and weave. When these combine, it makes it very, very difficult for your opponent to retain confidence in his hitting ability. With every miss, his decisiveness, his ability to hit you diminishes. He's hitting air, whereas you are braced with your legs bent, ready to deliver counters. Let's show you some very simple counters now out of these actions. Let's go right back to the beginning with slipping and show you simple counters and perhaps more involved ones. In this case, Frank is throwing a slow jab to me so I can demonstrate, and you can see from the positioning that I'm actually there to deliver a powerful short left hook here. But there's more going on than the opportunity to throw a simple hook. From this position, what we're saying is Frank is vulnerable on that side of his head if I can achieve the slip. An entirely different technique, a much stronger technique, can be brought to bear. Let's just see it again, done slowly, and then we'll show the application at speed. Frank throws a straightforward jab. I've slipped, but now look at what comes out of it. A spinning hook kick. Let's see that done at speed. So, in actual fact, what we've laid down here is an idea that a slip is not so much an evasion of an individual technique as a preparation for your own counterattack. And this you must bear in mind. Ultimately, when you've learned offensive techniques and defensive techniques, they have to flow together. This flow is absolutely vital if you're to take advantage of the opportunities that present themselves when your opponent attacks. Now we're going to move on away from upper body movement defence to blocking and parrying. Now it's worth saying at this point that by and large it is better to move rather than parry or block, and better to block rather than be hit. The more you use movement to defend yourself with, the more you leave your limbs free. The thing about parrying and blocking are they're more positive. You know you're covering the target area and therefore you're reducing your chances of getting caught if your timing's out. We're going to take you through a sequence now. That will include a catch and return, a parry, a rising forearm, and a rising shoulder. And we'll explain as we go along how these techniques are employed. Frank. Okay, a catch and return. A catch and return is a blocking action. And by a blocking action, what I mean is that you actually place something between your opponent's attacking limb and the target he's trying to hit. It's a barrier or wall, hence it's called a block. In this case, the catch and return should be likened to catching a ball thrown at you. In this case, it's the glove, not a ball. To begin with, as Frank throws a jab at my face, I open my rear hand from the normal guard and catch it there. He's trying to hit the face, I've caught the glove. Now it's very, very important that we emphasise that you do not overtly anticipate what he's going to do. Otherwise, what will happen is your blocking hand will come too far forward and leave a weakness in defence. And to do that, we're going to show how that works with a hook. So the proper action when Frank throws it is to open your glove and catch it very close to the target, here, positively. If you let it stray forward, and it's here, I'm now wide open for Frank's left hook, here. So, the glove will open near the target and catch the ball. And fast. Now normally with a catching action, you automatically return it with your own jab. And there's a little sequence here, a little drill. Now to save wear and tear on Frank's face, because once the face starts to fray it can't repair very well, what we're going to use is his glove as a target area. So in actual fact, we'll go through this slowly. Frank throws the jab at my face and I catch it. And I'm hitting his glove not because he's catching my punch, but it simulates the target area. Now I can practice these actions fast and strong without injury to my opponent. Watch. Now, this is quite a positive way of defending yourself. And we have said it ties up one hand at least. So it's not as offensive as when you use movement. But there's a little trick to cut down on the time with this one. And it involves a little subtle shift of the lead foot. What happens now is I don't block and return, but I return as I block. And we're going to do this slowly and then at speed. To begin with, as Frank throws the punch, I catch. And at the same time, I step and punch. So we get this. A slight angle occurs because I step off, and I'm able to perform both actions together. If you do this, it makes it very, very fast indeed, and a very effective counter. What I'm going to do now is to take away Frank's glove and aim at his face, but stop the punch dead, so that you can see the catch and return on target without him getting any injury. Okay, from here we're going to move on to a parry. Now there's one thing that we have to say about parries and blocks, is that sometimes there's a tendency to overemphasize them, particularly in inexperienced fighters. The harder your opponent launches an attack, the harder people seem to block and parry, but there's absolutely no need. Because of leverage, it is really a simple amount of force needed to deflect an attacking limb from its target. We're going to perform a little drill to show you how to do this. Frank, if you lock the punch onto my nose. Now I'm going to take my glove off here and just show you how this works. Frank is going to lock his arm out and put it on my nose. Tense your arm as much as you can. Now I'm going to take a finger. Watch this. That's all it takes. Lock the arm, don't let it leave my nose. The reason is simple. His arm has become a lever. I don't need a great deal of force. Therefore, a short, sharp smack on the cuff of his attacking glove will deflect it from the target area. Let's see how that works. We do this slowly, Frank. As Frank punches, I parry here, again. Here, on the cuff of his attacking glove, once more. Here. Okay, now let's see the action performed at speed. Thank you. Now, once we've parried, what we've actually done is we've stayed inside attacking range and we can launch a counter to Frank. What I'm going to show you now is one of the techniques we did in Volume 1, which was the shovel hook. And we mentioned there about attacking the liver and the solar plexus. If you think about the way Frank's standing when he launches his jab and where he is after I've parried, just take a look for a moment and look at where you can apply your counter. Slowly, Frank. Again. The shovel hook flows naturally out of a parrying action. So, it's not the only technique you can employ, but you must look at the way in which Frank has attacked me and the way I've used my defensive action, because it now primes my counter-attack. Once more. So, a parry and a counter-attack. Next, we're going to move along to two other blocks, the shoulder raise and the forearm raise. The first one we'll show you will be the forearm raise. And I have to point out to you that it looks vaguely like a blocking action used in basic karate, taekwondo, or kung fu, and that is the rising block. But there is a difference, a real difference, and we're going to emphasize it for you so you don't make the mistake of trying to perform a rising block. So, if you can imagine a punch is being thrown at me, I will keep my left hand in position, but raise my left elbow and deflect the punch as it comes towards me. I do not at any point allow my glove to rise from the center of my body. This opens up far too much target area for opponent to counter on. So once again, leave the glove in position, keep the arm totally relaxed, raise the forearm and deflect the cross with the center. I'll show you that now with Frank slowly. As Frank throws his cross, I leave my glove in position and raise my elbow here, deflecting the punch. Again. Slowly, I'm deflecting it here. Now, if we do this at speed, it's important that you don't make the action too gross, that you keep the glove in position and you perform just enough. Remember the example we gave with leverage. You don't need much force to deflect something because his attacking limb is a lever. A short, smart smack with the center of the forearm will deflect the punch. Let's see that at speed. Once more. Okay. Look at the basic action again. The glove remains in position. You keep the arm relaxed and raise the forearm, capturing the attacking limb with the center. Performed with a relaxed arm, this is a very, very efficient way of dealing with a heavy cross. If you incorporate it into your fighting system, it will serve you well. We're going to move along now to one which is even more subtle, but just as effective, and that's the rising shoulder. In this action, again, we'll demonstrate from full guard. All you do as your opponent throws across is to raise your shoulder here to protect the target area, which is your jaw. The roundness of your shoulder will bounce off the roundness of his glove and deflect it. We're going to do this very, very slowly so you can see what's going on. Just watch me once more. You raise the shoulder and cover the target area, which is the jaw. It doesn't look like very much is going on, does it? Watch. As Frank's cross comes slowly, I raise, and his glove bounces off. Once more. Okay. This time, Frank throws it hard at my chin. Go. To prove that this techniques work, because it doesn't look like much is going on, I'm actually going to put my hands behind my back and perform the action with Frank throwing full power right crosses at my face, just to prove the technique works under pressure. The roundness of the shoulder bounces off the roundness of his glove. The forearm raise and the shoulder raise perform very, very successful actions against the heavy right cross. You should practice them constantly and incorporate them into your fighting arsenal. Again, I'm going to re-emphasize, you can't do this when you're tense. Stay loose. Keep those shoulders loose, the hips loose, the knees loose, the ankles loose. And talk yourself down from tension. You must be mentally flexible, laid back. This should be something you're comfortable with. When you are comfortable with the defensive techniques, you can meet the hardest hitter in the ring and still perform. we're going to move on to forearm block, lower parry and covering. Again, I'm going to emphasise this business of leverage. The attacking limb is a lever. Short, sharp smacks on the attacking limb will deflect it from the target. Gross actions will leave you open for further counters. We're going to bring Sean into the ring now. Sean, and we're going to show you a forearm block done against both punches and kicks. But first of all, I'm going to demonstrate to you how small these actions are. If a punch is coming straight at your body, you will use your lead arm to perform the smallest of motions to come to the centre, and as you withdraw your right hip. That's all it is. It's very, very subtle. It is not a big swinging action. That is wrong. That'll leave you open. You go from the guard position and a very subtle movement across of your forearm and a withdrawal of the hip. Now, if you look at me now, you can't see the body at all. Okay, we're going to do this very slowly so you see how it works. As Sean throws a slow right cross to my body, I'm now performing that subtle movement across and withdrawing of the hip. And I'll prove that I've beaten the punch by rolling forward and he won't be hitting my body. Again, here I deflect, subtle withdrawal of the hip, subtle movement of the forearm, and if I raise my arms up here, you can see he's actually missed me. He's gone right past. A gross action here is too much. It's an energy drain and will leave you open. Small movements. Withdraw the hip, move the forearm across. Again, here. Raise my arm so you can see he has missed totally. Now let's see the action performed at speed with Sean throwing the punches with real venom. So, it works. Small action on the forearm, withdraw the hip. Now let's see it done against other techniques. In this case, we're going to be performing the forearm block with the rear arm. This is slightly more difficult because you're actually going to come further across to perform the subtle motion. To bring your arm to the centre of the body, you're travelling twice as far. Basically, when you finish the blocking action, his attacking limb should be on the outside of your body. So it's here. Withdraw the left hip, arm across a bit more. There. We're going to show this slowly on the jab and show you the movement forward again to show that the punch is missed. So Sean is going to throw a slow jab to my body, and as he does, I turn and deflect. There's that movement again. Once more. Deflecting here. He's missed me. That's all it's taken. Okay, Sean fast. And now, please bear in mind this isn't only against punches, but against any straight movement thrown to the target area, which is the body. In this case, we're now going to show you with a front kick thrown at the body and the same defensive blocking action with the forearm. Slowly, as Sean throws the front kick, I turn here. It's worth pointing out that the leg is longer and stronger than the hand. So first of all, you think it's more dangerous. But in actual fact, it's a longer lever, and it can take even less action to deflect it. Fast Sean. Once more with true venom. It doesn't take a big action. If you stay loose, the forearm will cover. Okay, that's the forearm block. Now we're going to show you the lower parry. If you do other martial arts, karate, kung fu, taekwondo, this is not too dissimilar from a lower block. The difference with a lower parry is that you are using a deflecting motion rather than a battering motion. There are one or two weaknesses with performing a lower block, which we're going to cover as well. It is very important that any defensive action you take doesn't leave you vulnerable to a different attack. If you overemphasize, you'll leave yourself open. We're going to show you first the lower block, the lower parry rather, and then we're going to show you where the weakness lies and how you can cover it. Okay. From here, if a front kick is thrown at you, you can drop down your front hand, catch the kick and deflect it. Same with the rear hand. You can drop the hand down and deflect it. We're showing it against a front kick first of all, and then we'll show it against a roundhouse kick. Sean, slowly. As he throws the front kick, I drop my hand down and deflect here. The weakness should become apparent. Think back to when we showed you the full guard, cross guard, angle guard. All of these made sure your upper body was protected. If I drop my lead hand to deflect, I'm actually opening the lead side of my face to a counter. Watch what happens if I drop that hand and leave my head open. Slowly. Although I successfully parry his foot, the blocking action actually leaves me open to a cross. So we cover that by throwing the parry and moving our hand from the guard position here to the front. And that covers the punch. Okay, so Sean is now going to throw a front kick hard, followed by a cross hard. Go. So, drop the hand, move the hand from the guard position to the centre, and you'll cover the obvious cross. This technique can be used against other kicks, and we'll show it against a roundhouse kick. And because a roundhouse kick travels in a circle, your movement will have to be slightly larger, not so much to deflect as to accommodate the circular motion. We're going to do this slowly, first of all. Sean is going to throw a rear leg roundhouse kick to my body, and then I'll show you the counter. Sean throws the roundhouse to my body, hitting the target area below the elbow there. As he throws it, I withdraw my lead leg slightly, go back, Sean, and as he does, I parry here. So it calls for a slight withdrawal and a lower parry. Again. Okay, this time, Sean, at speed, please. Okay, and this time, slowly, a lead leg roundhouse to the body. Again. Once more. And this time shown at speed. So, the lower parry is a good technique. It works on this leverage deflection principle. Its weakness is in dropping the hand, you leave the head open. And it is vital that you move your hand from the side here to the front to protect against follow-on hand attacks. Next, we're going to show you covering, which uses an entirely different principle. And for that, I'm going to be using Frank. Thank you, Sean. Okay, covering. Covering is technically the simplest of all actions. It asks you to place a barrier between the target and the attacking limb in the most simple, straightforward way. You use your limbs as a wall. The downside of this is that you're setting yourself up to receive the full force of your opponent's attack. So you only tend to cover when under real pressure and alternatives of body movement or parrying aren't available. To begin with, I'll show you a cover against an attack to the right-hand side of the face. All I do is move my elbow up here and use both my upper arm and my forearm to protect the entire side of my face. Watch it again. My elbow raises up and it's here. And you can see it now forms a wall against any circular attack from that side. To prove this, we're going to get Frank to launch a full power hook against the side of my head with me using this defense. I'd like you to throw 3 heavy hooks, Frank. Go. I survive them because the cover is a very strong wall. Bear in mind that if your opponent is a heavy hitter and you continually take punches on the upper arm, it can weaken your arms. It's not something you would choose to do, but it's an option that you use when there are no other choices. This time, the same action against an attack from the other side. Again, all it requires is a raising of the elbow. So, it works left and right. The good thing about covering is it enables an inexperienced fighter with perhaps not quite the subtle skills to cover a large area. If, for instance, Frank throws a roundhouse kick that's fast at me and I'm not sure where it's going to go, I can cover the entire side of my body by raising my lead leg and dropping my elbow. As the kick comes, I perform this action here. Raising the leg, raising the arm. Now if you watch, the area from my temple right down to my waist is covered. So wherever that kick comes out, I'm protected. So I don't need subtlety. I just need that positive seeing the kick and moving to it. Watch, Frankie's going to throw roundhouse kicks and he's going to vary them. He's going to throw one to my body, he's going to throw one to my head, and he's not going to tell me where. And all I'm going to do, irrespective of where he throws that kick, is perform that action. Frank, in your own time, throw a roundhouse where you want. Okay, so that shuts out any attack down that side. There's a downside to it. There always is. Unfortunately, with defensive manoeuvres, no matter what you do, there are always opportunities for your opponent to exploit. Think about it. Here I am blocking quite comfortably and a kick thrown anywhere. But I'm also balancing on one leg here. And my opponent can launch a very powerful follow-up attack. And I've got to put my leg down and reposition my guard before I can move anywhere else. So my commitment is big, but the protection is strong. It's a trade-off. What we're going to be doing next is showing you how these defensive skills link together and how you can flow out of them into attack in more complex form. Now we're going to show you how these individual defensive techniques link together into defensive combinations. As a fight wears on, your opponent will surely seek to land bigger and more extravagant combinations of his own. You must remain relaxed and deliver defensive combinations in reply to those. It's important that you remain relaxed throughout. I'm going to bring Sam in at this point and we'll start to show you the first combination and how you work against it. We're going to show two slips, a lay back and a duck, used against two straight punches and two hooks. First, Sam will throw a jab, then a cross, a lay back and a duck. Watch again. Slip, slip, lay back, duck. Now we'll show you fast. See how each technique flows into the next one. You must remain on balance, otherwise you won't be able to perform further blocking actions. Okay, let's move it on again and show you now defensive manoeuvres done against a sustained attack with curving punches. Sam. It's important to remember that you must remain balanced throughout your defensive manoeuvres. As your opponent launches further and further attacks, if you're not on balance, you won't be able to flow into the next defence. In this case, I'm going to defend myself using bob and weave twice and a layback against a sustained attack. Sam throws a left hook, to which I bob and weave. I come up, and I'm open now for a further hook. Again, I bob and weave. But at this point in my defence, Sam elects to throw an uppercut, and my defence is to lean back. Watch that again. I bob and weave, lay back. Okay, let's see those defences done fast. So, if at any point my balance breaks down, I cannot flow to the next motion. It's very important that you practice these manoeuvres. Get in front of a mirror. See yourself going through the movements and visualise your opponent's attack. Talk yourself down so that there's no tension in those shoulders, those hips, those knees or those ankles. Mental and physical flexibility are key to important self-defence. Okay, now we're going to start to show you blocks and parries used in conjunction. And for that, I'm going to use Frank. This particular combination makes use of blocking movements when you're under pressure. We have said that it's better to move rather than block or parry. We're going to presume in this case that we're backed up with nowhere to go, either on the ropes or in the corner. Therefore, I have no choice but to employ parries and blocks. Let's talk our way through the defence and explain the principles as we go. In this case, Frank is throwing a jab, which I parry. Then he throws a cross, which I parry. As he throws a left hook, I've nowhere to go, so I cover. But I've left myself open for my defence with a right cross from Frank. So I'm forced to employ a forearm raise. Let's watch that again. Parry, parry. Nowhere to go, therefore I cover. And once more, I deflect against his right cross. Let's see that done at speed. It's important to remain relaxed, no matter how strong the punches are coming at you. The more relaxed you are, the quicker you'll flow. Next, we're going to be showing you a parry and a shoulder raise. Okay, now let's start incorporating some kicks. Now this gets very complex. Your opponent is going to be hitting you with punches and with long, strong kicks. And again, we've set the requirement on this defence that you've got nowhere to go. You're backed up either into a corner or on the ropes. So it's going to be parrying and blocking actions rather than movement. And for this, I'm going to be using Frank. Okay. The important thing to look for here is that you cannot move back. Therefore, you're forced to perform your defensive actions. We did say when we showed you the cover that this is a kind of a last-ditch defence, throwing a wall up. And indeed, that's the last part of this defensive combination. Let's talk you through it slowly. Frank throws a jab, and I parry. He then throws a cross, and I deflect it with a shoulder raise. But as you can see, by raising my shoulder, my side is open to attack, and therefore he throws a roundhouse to my body, and I have to cover. Watch again. I parry, shoulder raise, which leaves me open to a roundhouse, and then I have nothing else to do but to cover. The defence works because that cover is so good, it'll cover you from your temple to your hips. Now let's see that defence done under pressure. Parry, shoulder raise, cover. Again. Again. The stronger the opponent's attack, the more vital it is that you stay mentally flexible and meet that attack. Now let's take it on even further. We mentioned earlier on that with the lob parry, you can leave the face open. Therefore, we're going to take account of that with this defence. Sean, it's very important to remember that if you're going to start using defensive motions, there are implications in terms of your opponent's attack. By using the lob parry in my first move, I'll leave my face open and Sean will deliver an attack as a result of that. When I try and meet that attack, he changes again. Let's talk you through slowly exactly what's going on. Sean throws a lead leg front kick, which I meet comfortably with a parry. But my face is open, and he throws a jab. I'll cover the jab, but now he launches a right hook at my head. If this connects, it's a knockout. I'm tied up with dealing with the kick and the punch, and it's that's his cue. Now, we said before, when your back's against the wall, you're in the corner, you're on the ropes, you're going to have to cover. This once again falls back on the cover as a last-ditch defence against that hook. Let's see it done slowly, and let's see it done fast. And fast. So, Even against a strong, determined attack, if you're relaxed in your defence, confident, you'll be able to match that attack. Okay, let's move the action on again. As the fight progresses, your opponent will surely commit with heavier and heavier combinations and seek to bring the fight to a close. In this case, we include the strongest karate kick, the back thrust kick. Remember, if this kick hits you, it's a man stopper. The fight could be over. At the very least, you'll be so debilitated that the rest of the round you can expect sustained pressure. Ironically, the block that we employ against it is the subtlest of movements. Let's bring Sean in and show you how it works. Sean. Now, to show you precisely what's behind the attack, we're going to slow it down and explain why Sean might attack in this way and why we must be prepared to defend against it. To begin with, Sean throws a jab, which I meet with a parry, then a cross, which I meet with a further parry. But in parrying, my arms have come up, and I've left my midsection open to attack. This is when he launches his back thrust kick to my body. You can see that my first defensive manoeuvres have opened me up. Unless I'm relaxed at this point, unless I come up with the right solution, I'm in deep trouble. The defence I'm going to use is a forearm block. So the long, strong back thrust kick is met with a kick which uses leverage, and that's important. Let's do this slowly and then show you some fast. So, no matter how strong the attack, no matter how much penetration there is, at the end of the day, a small, simple block will deflect it. Practice your defences, stay relaxed mentally and physically, and you can meet these strong attacks successfully. Okay, in this final defence, we're going to show the most complex attack yet, and how you must always remember to stay on balance and mentally and physically flexible to meet increased attacks. Sean. Most powerful attacks start in a deceptively simple way, luring your opponent to stand his ground and perform defensive manoeuvres, so that you can set him up and finish him off. This is what Sean's going to do with me now. His plan is to lure me with simple attacks, which I meet with simple defences, and he sets me up for a spinning hook kick. Remember, there's a strong debate about whether this is the biggest kick in kickboxing or not. Either way, if it hits you, the fight is over. Sean will launch a jab, which I'll catch. Then he'll throw a cross, which I'll catch. Then he throws a hook, and I bob and weave. But as I bob and weave and come up, he continues his turning motion and launches a spinning hook kick against me. If that connects, the fight's over. Remember what we said. Last-ditch defences are covers. So, let's watch it done slowly and then fast. The jab is met with a catch and another catch. Then he throws a hook, which I bob and weave, and a spinning hook kick, and I cover. I have no choice. I have nowhere to go. As Sean throws his punches directly at my face, I cover comfortably. Then he throws the hook, and I commit myself by bobbing and weaving. And as I come up, I'm right in the path for that spinning hook kick and have no choice but to offer a cover as my defence. Slowly. Let's see that attack now done fast. No matter what the attack, no matter how much pressure you're put under, no matter how much power and speed are delivered towards you, you must trust your techniques. The only way that's going to happen is if you thoroughly understand the defence mechanisms. What we're going to do now is take a halfway step towards sparring. We're going to take you towards defensive drills which teach you how to use these defences, not statically, such as we've been doing, but in a very alive way. This is called structured sparring. The first one we're going to show you is in the corner. We've already shown you the individual defensive techniques. Then we went on to show you how they're linked together to form a cohesive defence. Now we're going to take it a step further. This is a halfway step between practicing techniques and sparring in the ring. Most people, when under pressure, will instinctively move away from an attack. What structured sparring does in this particular case is place you with your back against the corner so that you cannot move away, and your only object is to defend yourself using the techniques that you've been practicing. To begin with, this is hard. Everyone is gun shy and overreacts. But if you continue with this training, you'll find you'll relax more and more, and you'll be able to go from half speed, half power attacks to full power, full speed attacks and defend successfully. This is a vital step in being able to safely enter the ring and conduct sparring. We're going to be showing you a sequence of 4 rounds of structured sparring. In the first round, Frank will be hitting me with hands. I'll be defending only. I'll be moving, parrying and blocking. I will not be fighting back. Then when the second round comes, I'll show you how to use a jab as a respect getter, so that I'm still primarily defensive, but every now and again I'm using my jab to make my opponent realign and choose his attack wisely. In the third round, Frank will attack me with hands and I'll defend myself with hands. I'm still trapped against that corner, but now at least I have a means of fighting back. And my defensive combinations should flow into counterattacks. Finally, we get to the stage where Frank opens up with his legs as well, and I defend with legs. Again, I'm in that corner and cannot move. What you should be looking for when we do this is, are we using the techniques we've just taught you? Are we slipping, ducking, laying back, bobbing and weaving? Are we covering? Are we using all our body to move in a flexible, subtle way? Or are we just tensing up? The more you train on this, the more confident you'll become. I highly recommend it as a skill which prepares you for sparring. I'd now like to bring Frank into the ring.
So just to recap, we showed you the individual defensive skills. Then we linked them together into defensive combinations. And then we introduced our first type of structured sparring in the corner. Incidentally, if your ring is not available and you have to spar in a gymnasium with bare walls, then you can do that drill backed up against the wall. Just be careful on the headshots. Now we move along to another type of structured sparring. When we put you in the corner, we made you use your defensive skills under pressure without being able to move away. What we're going to do now is take a pace forward and tie you and an opponent together so that you're able to freely move around the ring but can never move more than 4 foot apart. This places you in striking distance the whole time, which means you constantly have to consider defence as well as attack. It'll make you work your guards. Think about those. Think of the full guard, think of the half guard, the cross guard and the angled guard. Employ them as and when. Then think about the individual techniques and the structured combinations. Now employ them all with some movement. This is a very demanding type of sparring. You're not able to relax. To begin with, you should spar at half speed and with half power. And as your confidence and ability grows, so you should tone the action up till you're hitting full speed and full power. When I drop my hand, we're off. So that brings us to the end of Volumes 1 and Volumes 2 of Essential Kickboxing. We've covered the offensive techniques of punching and kicking and the defensive drills. Linked together, these take you towards sparring in the actual ring. Use the DVDs for reference. Go back, look at the individual techniques, rehearse them. Don't be afraid to go back and relearn. The whole point about kickboxing is that it's an art science. You're meant to study, you're meant to deconstruct. Use these DVDs wisely to help you in that process. Look forward to seeing you in the future DVDs.